Hi, you are watching Revenge of Reddit. My fiancée cheated on me, and thanks to that, I met a wonderful woman. Now my ex is coming back, thinking she'll have another chance. After reading so many stories here, I decided to share mine. I don't know if anyone will get anything from it, but I feel like I need to tell it. It all began when I was in college. In my first year, I met Andrea, an extroverted, charismatic girl with a confidence that made everyone notice her the moment she entered a room. Wasn't just her looks, but the way she spoke and moved through life. I, on the other hand, was more reserved. Not shy, but not someone who stood out in a large group either. We met at a college party, and from the very first moment, there was something between us. Andrea was the kind of person who got what she wanted, and for some reason, she wanted me. During the first few months, everything was amazing. Over time, I got absorbed into her group of friends because, truth be told, most of my own friendships back then were pretty shallow. Classmates I studied with, nothing more. Before I knew it, her circle had become mine. A few years later, in the middle of our degree, Katerina arrived, an exchange student who joined the university through a credit validation program. She was tall, with dark blonde hair and light eyes, and that distinct Russian accent. Andrea adopted her immediately, as she usually did with people who caught her interest. Apparently, she felt Katerina was lost in a new country and decided to make her part of the group, and by extension, part of mine too. I didn't interact with Katerina much. She was friendly, polite, and quiet, one of those people who always greet you with a smile. But outside of group events, we hardly spoke. Andrea and she became inseparable, and soon Katerina started dating Marcos, another of our friends. They seemed stable. Everything in college continued as normal. After several years with Andrea, at the start of our last year, I proposed to her. I had planned it carefully because I wanted it to be special, something we'd remember fondly forever. I proposed during a weekend trip with friends. She said yes, excited, and everyone celebrated with us. We were engaged, but the plan was always to marry after graduation. We wanted to finish college before taking that step. For me, that final year began peacefully. I focused on my studies, on planning life after graduation, and on enjoying my relationship with Andrea. Sometimes she could be a bit self-centered and controlling, but I justified it as part of her strong personality. Our relationship had ups and downs like any other, but overall, I believed we were happy. Nothing had prepared me for what was coming. One afternoon, after a normal day at the university, someone knocked on my apartment door. When I opened it, I found Katerina, crying uncontrollably. Her eyes were red, her face pale, and she looked like she'd run all the way there without stopping to breathe. I didn't know where else to go, she said between sobs, her voice breaking. I didn't understand. We weren't close. She wasn't the type to come to me with her problems, so seeing her like that left me completely confused. I assumed she'd come to see Andrea, but Andrea wasn't home yet. I invited her in without knowing what to say, and she just collapsed onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. "What happened?" I asked, closing the door behind me. Katerina took a while to respond. She had to calm down first, then looked at me and said the words that shattered my world. "Andrea and Marcos. I found them together." For a moment, I didn't understand. My brain couldn't process what I had just heard. "What do you mean?" "I went to Marcos's apartment and found them in bed," she repeated, her voice trembling. "Andrea and my boyfriend." The air in the room grew heavy. My mind desperately searched for any other explanation, any possibility that it wasn't true. But when I looked at Katerina's devastated face, I knew she wasn't lying. No one could fake that kind of pain. Still, part of me refused to believe it. It couldn't be true. "Are you sure?" I asked, though I knew it was a stupid question. "I saw them with my own eyes. Marcos didn't even try to make excuses. Andrea just looked at me and said, "Oops." A chill ran down my spine. My fiancée mocked being caught cheating by her best friend. I didn't know what to say or do. It was as if my brain refused to accept reality. I had spent years with Andrea. We had built plans together, talked about our wedding, about life after college. None of that made sense if this was true. The silence between us was broken when the apartment door opened. Andrea walked in like nothing had happened, radiating confidence as if she owned the place. She was wearing different clothes from that morning, a detail I didn't miss. "What's going on?" she asked, looking at us. Katerina lifted her tear-streaked face and looked straight at her. Andrea froze for a moment in the doorway, observing us, and then I saw a subtle change in her expression. In that instant, she understood what was happening. She looked at me, then at Katerina, and her expression wasn't surprise or guilt. She didn't try to deny anything. She didn't tell a single lie. Instead, she sighed and crossed her arms, as if the whole situation bored her. "Well, I guess you know everything now." That was all she said, as if it were something trivial, and at that moment, I knew it was over. "Is it true?" I managed to ask, though my voice came out weaker than I'd have liked. Andrea sighed again, as if my question were idiotic. She looked at me with annoyance and shrugged. "Don't ask stupid questions." And just like that, she turned and went to the bedroom, as if none of it mattered. As if our relationship, our history, our engagement were just a formality she now found inconvenient. I stayed in the living room, motionless, trying to process what I'd just heard. I wanted to yell, confront her, demand answers, but I couldn't move. Nothing had prepared me for this. From the bedroom, I heard drawers opening and closing. She was packing her things. A few minutes later, Andrea came back, dragging a suitcase without any hurry. Her face was calm, not a hint of shame or remorse. Pathetically, I asked the first thing that came to mind. "What about the wedding?" Andrea looked at me like she was exhausted, as if the whole situation bored her. "Whatever I left behind, throw it away." She left her keys on the table without even looking at me. Before leaving, she turned to Katerina, who was still on the couch, face wet with tears. "Don't go back to Marcos's place. I live there now." And with that, she left. The silence she left behind was overwhelming. No screams, no crying, no final fight, no apologies or explanations, just emptiness. Katerina and I stayed there, not looking at each other, both trying to process what had just happened. I couldn't speak. I couldn't feel anything yet. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Katerina stood up slowly. She muttered something in Russian, a curse I didn't understand at the time, but later learned meant "damn bitch." Before leaving, she turned to me, looked with sadness and compassion, and said, "I'm so sorry." Then she left. I was alone with the wreckage. That night, after sitting in silence for hours, I began to look around the apartment. Andrea had taken all of her things, except what I had given her. Clothes I'd bought for her, perfumes I'd gifted over the years, small tokens of affection from our time together. Everything was there, abandoned. And on the nightstand, beside the bed where we had slept together just hours earlier, sat the box with the engagement ring. I went through some very dark days. I had to call my parents and tell them everything. It was humiliating. My mother cried. My father stayed silent as if he didn't know what to say. I didn't know which was worse. Then came the next betrayal. The group of friends I had joined through Andrea took her side. I didn't expect them to defend me, but I also didn't think they'd act like nothing had happened. They kept hanging out with Andrea and Marcos, as if everything was fine, as if I had never existed. I couldn't be around them anymore. I didn't want to see any of them. So I walked away, The only surprise was a phone call I received a few days later. It was Andrea's father. His voice sounded tired, ashamed. "I'm so sorry, son," he said. "I can't believe what Andrea's done. I don't recognize her anymore. I always thought you were the perfect match, truly. I just want you to know you have my respect, and I wish you strength." I didn't know what to say. I just thanked him and hung up. Time passed. I tried to focus on my studies, on not thinking. In the end, I had no other choice. I distanced myself from everyone and worked hard on my own. Then, about a month after discovering the betrayal, I walked into a cafe on campus, and there was Katerina, sitting alone by the window. She looked lost in thought. We hadn't spoken since that night. I approached her, and when she looked up and saw me, she tried to smile, but it was clear she wasn't doing well. "Can I sit?" I asked. She nodded with a faint smile, not the same smile as before. We talked a little. She told me that after what happened, the group had excluded her too. Andrea made sure to turn everyone against her, and since she was a foreign student without many close friends, she ended up completely alone. "It's better this way," she said, trying to sound convinced. "I don't want those people anywhere near me." But her expression told another story. I didn't know how to respond. I'm not good at these things. So, awkwardly, I tried to change the subject. "How are your exams going?" "Okay, more or less," she said. "There's one subject that's killing me." We talked about it for a while. It happened to be a subject I was good at, so I offered to help her study. It was more something to say than a real plan. She stayed quiet for a moment, then smiled, genuinely this time. "That would really help," she said. We agreed to meet another day at the library, and that's how it started. After the exams, Katerina invited me for a drink to thank me. It was the first time we really talked, really got to know each other. She told me about her life before coming to the U.S., her plans for after graduation. At first, she had planned to go back to Russia for a while and then return to the States. But after what happened with Andrea, she wasn't so sure anymore. Over time, we started seeing each other more often. We went to the movies once because there was a film we both wanted to see. Another day, she invited me to her apartment and cooked a strange Russian dish I had never even heard of before. Nothing else happened between us then. We were just friends, two people supporting each other. But slowly, without realizing it, Katerina began to take up space in my life. She was funny, with a weird sense of humor, as if she enjoyed seeing my reactions to her unexpected remarks. She was caring without being clingy. There was a calmness in her voice that contrasted sharply with Andrea's intensity. And the strangest thing, when I was with her, I didn't think about Andrea at all. I don't know when it happened, but we became inseparable. And before we knew it, something deeper began to grow between us. The last few months of college were the best of my life. Katerina and I were always together. Not only did we study and help each other with projects, but we also hung out and had fun. We went to a concert of a band we both liked, went out drinking with classmates, even got drunk one night, and spent hours openly mocking Andrea and her group of friends. It felt like purging poison from the body. We laughed like never before, remembering how ridiculous they all were. It was liberating. But as graduation approached, a new worry started gnawing at me. Katerina would be leaving. It was something we'd talked about many times. She had promised her family she'd return to Russia after college. She didn't say it with sadness or excitement, just with the calm certainty that it was something she had to do. And though we never said it out loud, we both knew her leaving would leave a huge hole. When graduation day finally came, it was an incredible moment. We were surrounded by classmates, celebrating the end of an important chapter. My parents were there, and they already knew Katerina. During the ceremony, I saw her smiling, hugging friends, her hair tied back, cap in hand. She looked happy. She looked beautiful. That night, my family invited her to dinner to celebrate. It was a wonderful evening, full of laughter, university stories, and talk about the future. But at one point, when Katerina mentioned she'd be flying back to Russia in a week, my father looked at me and said quietly, something I'll never forget. "Don't lose a woman like that, or you'll regret it for life." And I already knew he was right. When only a few days remained before her flight, I helped her pack everything, her clothes, her documents, even some gifts for her family. The day I drove her to the airport, the silence in the car was heavy. We didn't know what to say. When we arrived, I helped her with her luggage and walked her to the gate. People were coming and going all around us. But in that moment, to me, there was only her. I knew that if I didn't say something now, I'd regret it forever. "Katerina," I said. She looked at me, eyes slightly glassy but without tears. "I know you have to go back to your family. I know it's important to you, but I want you to know something." I swallowed hard. "I hope you decide to come back." She looked at me, wide-eyed. "Because if you don't, I'll have to come find you." For the first time that day, she smiled. She didn't say a word. She just leaned forward and kissed me. It was our first kiss, and in that moment, I knew it wouldn't be our last. "Having you come find me wouldn't be so bad," she whispered when we pulled apart. And then she was gone. In the months that followed, we talked every single day. Through messages, phone calls, video chats. There wasn't a day without some kind of contact. Once, the middle of winter, she called me just to show me her house covered in snow, with the temperature well below zero. I laughed and told her she'd better get used to the American climate, because I wasn't going to let her stay in Russia for long. As for me, I focused on work. I knew she'd come back someday, and I wanted to be ready. Then, one day, I received an unexpected call from an old friend from Andrea's group. He apologized for disappearing and admitted that over time, he'd realized Andrea and Marcos were a complete disaster. "They fight all the time," he told me. "They break up and get back together every couple of weeks." He even said they'd cheated on each other. By the time college ended, their group of friends had completely fallen apart. "I don't even know what happened to Andrea," he said finally. "No one talks to her anymore." I didn't care in the slightest. 8 months after Katerina's departure, she came back. There were no long talks, no complicated explanations. When I went to pick her up at the airport and saw her again after so long, we just kissed. And from that moment on, we were inseparable. She moved in with me, and we started our life together. Andrea's betrayal had become nothing but a distant memory, something that no longer held any weight in my heart. Until one day, she came back. More than 2 years had passed since college. Katerina and I had been living together for over a year in a stable and happy relationship. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. I went to answer, and to my surprise, it was Andrea. She looked almost the same, though something in her eyes had changed. She no longer had that arrogant spark I remembered. "Hi," she said, greeting me as if nothing had ever happened. I just stared at her, saying nothing. "I'm getting the old group together," she continued. "I thought maybe you'd like to see everyone again." I looked at her in disbelief. Something like that could have been asked through a message, but it didn't matter. "I'm not interested in seeing anyone," I said. "Least of all you." Andrea pressed her lips together, clearly not expecting that response. Before she could say anything else, I heard footsteps, Katerina coming back from grocery shopping. She didn't even glance at Andrea. To her, Andrea was utterly irrelevant. "Hey, love," she said naturally, leaning in to kiss me. I kissed her back, and without giving Andrea another look, I closed the door in her face. There was nothing more to say. Today, it's been nearly 10 years since all of that. Katerina and I are married now, and we have a wonderful daughter. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Andrea had never cheated. Maybe we'd be married. Maybe we'd still be together. Maybe my life would be completely different. But I have no doubt about one thing. The best thing that ever happened to me was Andrea's betrayal. Because of that, I ended up with the best woman I could have ever imagined.